I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword.
Our work can be seen on film, Broadway, and at Renaissance festivals around the country.
We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man at Arms, REFORGED.
Not only is Tessaiga a really highly requested build, but it's one of Ilya's favorite anime and mangas, so he's going to put a lot more love into this project.
Before we start the build, we have to sketch out the piece. In the TV series as well as in the manga, the Tessaiga transforms from what is described as a shabby, poorly taken care of katana blade into a giant two-handed falchion with katana mounts. The goal for this project is to make the Black Tessaiga version in the later episodes of the series. The Black Tessaiga looks like a photo of a galaxy or a nebula, so when we heat blue during the tempering process, it should give us a look of a nebula of the Black Tessaiga with stars in it and clouds. So this is going to be the general look of the Tessaiga, but it's going to be almost my height. What I did for this project is I ordered from Aldo Bruno Japanese black sand steel. One has to remember that when one is making Japanese katana blades, the traditional methods, the success rate is about, at best, 60% for Japanese blacksmiths who've been doing swords all their lives.
In this billet, there's 1095, W2, and Hitachi blue Japanese steel.
This gives me my bright, this gives me my dark and hard, and this gives me my really dark and really hard edge.
Ilya uses the bandsaw to cut his strips that will become his Damascus billet.
For the suka on this sword, Lauren fits the fushi, kashira, and manuki to a sprue base so that they can be invested in cast. She then pours plaster around the waxes to invest it. It will be fired in the kiln at 1350 degrees.
After Ilya's edge billet is up to heat, he forge welds it. He then goes to the hammer, draws it out a bit, hot cuts it, folds it, and re-welds it on the press. So what these dies allow us to do is, they take our straight laminate billet, and when we squeeze it in here, it takes 45-degree angle, turns those straight lines into chevrons following the shape of our top and bottom die.
I take the bronze in and make the pour. The bronze is about 2100 degrees here. Once the temperature of the bronze falls below 900 degrees, it's no longer glowing. We take it out to the water, quench it, and it reveals the fushi, kashira, and the manuki.
After folding the billet several times, Ilya moves to the power hammer and rounds out the corners. He and I then twist the billet together. We use a pipe wrench with a bar welded on the opposite end for extra leverage. After twisting, we then square the billet in order to give flat surfaces for the next forge weld. Now that we have both the spine and the middle billet squared, we move to the hydraulic press and forge weld them together. Using a special bottom die, we press in a serrated edge onto the middle bar that will become our wolf jaw pattern. So Ilya made this bottom die, lots of little triangular cross-section pieces welded on. Basically what we're doing is we're pressing the two bars into this. Instead of giving you a real boring linear forge weld line, we'll have a really nice wolf tooth pattern along the edge. All right, here's our straight laminate billet. We're getting ready to heat that up in the forge that will then press into this pattern here, creating our tooth pattern at the weld seam. Ilya and I go to the press and weld the edge on. Afterwards, we use a hand hot cut tool to cut away any excess metal. We then go back to the press and re-square the billet and prep it to draw out the blade. After many hours of complex forging, Ilya is now on his last heat. He removes the blade from the forge one last time and uses a wooden hammer to straighten the blade. Got our blade back from forging. Ilya did a really crazy job on this. It's a really, really big blade. So my next task is to go ahead and clean up that profile on the grinder. Once I've got that done, I move on to beveling the blade. and prepping it for heat treat. Using a brush, we apply the clay to the back of the blade. Not only is this important for differentially heat treating, this is also the most beautiful part of Japanese bladesmithing. We quench the blade in a horizontal quench tank. This mimics the traditional methods a Japanese bladesmith would use. Now that the heat treating forge has come down to around 500 degrees, we stick the blade back in for tempering. Oh, wait. We ready?
Now that the Tessaiga blade is polished, we're ready to expose the hada. Hada lines are essentially the weld lines in the material, which are produced during folding. I'm using ferric chloride because it's quite more aggressive and should transfer the piece well to the viewer.
Since the blade is too long and too curved to fit into our normal etch tank, Ilya uses a Scotch-Brite pad to scuff the surface as he applies the acid.
As you can see, we have 3 twisted bars with the houndtooth edge pattern. As I'm etching it a little bit more, you will start seeing some star pattern coming out in the back. Now that the tsuba is cleaned and polished, it's time to engrave it.
Using chisels and a hammer that he made, Ilya engraves the tsuba. He chooses a cloud and hound motif to match the Tessaiga theme. After milling his tang slots into his hardwood, Ilya moves to the sander to begin shaping the handle. To add a little more Japanese flair to the piece, Ilya graves a lotus flower onto the habaki. Using a special jig that he made himself, John does the Ito wrap on the handle.
And now that the Ito wrap is completed, this finishes the tsuka, the handle. We will test fit it. And it fits perfectly.
Ilya's really put his heart and soul into this build. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Click here to subscribe, or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.